Ambassador Zethkar had lived through 7 galactic cycles, witnessed the rise and fall of 3 stellar empires, and negotiated treaties that shaped the destiny of countless worlds. Yet nothing in his extensive experience had prepared him for the sight before him. A human delegation walking into the Grand Assembly without a single weapon, armor plate, or defensive shield. The Terran representative, a surprisingly small female named Sarah Chen, carried only a simple data pad and wore what appeared to be ceremonial cloth. The other species in the chamber, Krillian war leaders in their biomechanical suits, Nethys commanders surrounded by floating shield generators, and Vorthan dignitaries behind their energy barriers, all stared in what could only be described as bewildered concern. "The human delegation requests the floor," Chen announced, her voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber, despite lacking any vocal amplification technology. Zethkar's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of deep confusion among his people. For 3 standard years, the Galactic Coalition had been locked in a devastating war with the Devourers, a hive mind species that consumed entire worlds, leaving nothing but stripped rock in their wake. Every battle had been a calculated affair, with strict rules of engagement, predetermined acceptable loss ratios, and carefully managed resource allocation. The humans had followed these protocols religiously, much to everyone's surprise. When they'd first been discovered on their death world, a planet so hostile that its very existence challenged several theories of planetary habitability, the Coalition had expected typical Deathworlder behavior: reckless aggression, disregard for casualty rates, and brutal efficiency. Instead, the humans had proven to be remarkably civilized. They attended strategy meetings, followed chain of command, and even seemed to genuinely care about minimizing casualties among allied forces. Their military tactics, while effective, stayed well within the bounds of the Coalition's rules of warfare. It was almost disappointing to some of the more militant species who had hoped the legendary Deathworlders would provide a decisive edge. But now, as the Devourer fleets massed for what intelligence suggested would be a final, overwhelming assault on the Coalition's core worlds, something in Sarah Chen's expression made Zethkar's respiratory slits flutter with unease. "Honored delegates," Chen began, her words measured and calm, "we have received confirmation that the Devourer fleet will reach Sanctuary Prime in 47 hours. Our combined fleets, fighting according to established protocols, have a projected success rate of 12%. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. The sanctuary system housed over 60 billion civilians across 7 species. A 12% success rate was effectively a death sentence. However, Chen continued, and something shifted in her tone, something that made even the mighty Krillians lean forward in their seats. "We have an alternative proposal. The human government respectfully requests to withdraw from the Coalition's rules of warfare for the duration of this engagement." The chamber erupted. The Krillian war leader Thax Morok slammed his massive fist against his podium. "Impossible. The rules of warfare have governed civilized conflict for 2,000 years. They separate us from the barbarians. The humans seek to abandon honor," hissed the Nethys representative, her crystalline form pulsing with agitated colors. But Zethkar noticed something others missed. The human delegation wasn't arguing. They weren't pleading or explaining. They simply waited, with the patience of a species that had spent millennia as persistence hunters on a world where everything else wanted to kill them. When the chamber finally quieted, Chen spoke again. "We understand your concerns. However, we believe you may have misunderstood something fundamental about our nature. For 3 years we have fought as you fight, with rules, with honor, with restraint. We did this not because we couldn't fight any other way, but because we chose to, because we respected you." She paused, and when she continued, her voice carried an undertone that made Zethkar's survival instincts scream warnings. "The Devourers show no such respect. They consume children. They turn worlds into graveyards. And now they threaten 60 billion innocent lives." Chen's eyes, those predator eyes that marked humans as apex hunters, swept across the assembly. We are asking permission to stop playing by your rules and start playing by ours." "And what exactly are your rules?" demanded the Vorthan delegate. Sarah Chen smiled, and Zethkar suddenly understood why ancient Earth legends spoke of monsters. That looked human. Simple. We win. The vote was closer than expected, fear of human unrestraint warring with desperation for victory. But when the Devourer fleet began its assault on Sanctuary Prime 37 hours later, they met not the expected coalition formation, but something that would become legend throughout the galaxy. The humans had spent those hours doing something no other species had thought possible. They had weaponized their entire civilian fleet. Cargo haulers became missile platforms, luxury liners became boarding vessels. Even scientific survey ships had been converted into something the galaxy had never seen. Improvised warships crewed by people who treated the universe itself as something to be conquered rather than merely survived. They didn't fight like the coalition fought, with careful tactics and acceptable losses. They fought like the apex predators of a death world, with creativity born from surviving on a planet that had tried to kill them every single day of their evolution. They used gravity wells as weapons, turning gas giants into slingshots. They hacked Devourer hive communications, flooding their networks with contradictory orders. They even weaponized their own tendency toward pack bonding, somehow convincing captured Devourer bioships to turn against their own fleet. But what terrified the watching galaxy most wasn't their creativity or their technology. It was their absolute, unwavering commitment to victory. Human crews that should have been dead continued fighting. Ships that should have been destroyed somehow kept firing. And when conventional weapons failed, they did the unthinkable. They rammed their ships directly into Devourer command vessels, taking down targets worth more than entire coalition fleets. The Battle of Sanctuary Prime lasted 18 hours. When it ended, the Devourer fleet, the largest military force the galaxy had ever seen, was completely destroyed. The human fleet had suffered 73% casualties. In the aftermath, as rescue operations began, Zethkar found himself standing beside Sarah Chen on the observation deck of a coalition medical frigate. The human looked exactly as composed as she had in the assembly, despite having just overseen the most brutal military engagement in galactic history. "Why?" Zethkar asked finally. "Why hold back for so long only to—" "Because," Chen replied, watching human rescue ships pull survivors from the wreckage with the same determination they'd shown in battle. "Someone had to remember that the point of rules isn't the rules themselves, it's protecting what matters. And when the rules stop doing that," she turned to look at him with those predator eyes, "well then it's time to stop playing fair." The humans rejoined the coalition's rules of warfare the next day, as civilized and restrained as ever. But every species in the galaxy now carried the same knowledge. The Deathworlders had been holding back, and they all sincerely hoped they would never see what humans looked like when they stopped.